So happy New Year. It is currently December 31st of 2022. And I wanted to do a New Year's special, and I was combing through some old recipe books, and I found a recipe for Joan Blondell's frosted Russian chocolate. And it was like a light bulb went off moment. I thought, what could possibly be a better way to celebrate New Year's than chocolate and Joan Blondell? And I'm so excited to welcome you to this episode of Hollywood Kitchen. Yes, today, making their Hollywood Kitchen debuts, I have got Joan Hayward, the granddaughter of Joan Blondell and Dick Powell, both huge stars in the 1930s and 40s, and the great Liz Locke, who runs a blog called Cinema Sips, where she writes and does recipes on classic movie themed and inspired cocktails. And both of these ladies are authors. So I'm so excited to welcome both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. And we'll start off the show because I do get some people who are new to old Hollywood. So for those who are new to it, a little bit about Joan Blondell. She was born into a vaudeville family, so she made her stage debut very, very early on. She had a life working in theater, and then she was on Broadway with James Cagney when star Al Jolson saw the show and really wanted Warner Brothers. He bought the rights, I believe, and the movie wound up getting made of this Broadway show with Cagney, with Blondell at Warner Brothers. So she started out right there at the top, making her first movie with James Cagney at Warner Brothers in 1930. And really, the pre-code era was made for Joan. She made so many movies at Warner Brothers. I kind of wonder if she ever slept in the 9 years she was under, because I think she made, what, 50-something movies just in like 9 years. I forget, but it was a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
And then she left Warner Brothers in 1939 and did tons of work as a character actress. She earned an Oscar nomination in, I believe it was 1951. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also she worked in television. She worked in theater. She really had a very, very long, like 50-something year career. So she was a remarkable woman. Yes, so I'm excited to talk about her. So the question I want to ask you first, Joan, is did your grandmother cook?
She loved to cook. She was famous for her chili, especially. She would invite, cast and crew over to the house and make giant pot of chili and just have the full spread. And she loved to cook. She really did. It was one of her favorite things to do. And she was famous for her chili and her spaghetti and all kinds of stuff. She loved to cook, though, and invite people over. And it just was really nice, really nice.
Well, the recipe we're going to make is called frosted Russian chocolate, which I'm kind of wondering where the Russian part comes in. I'm not entirely sure how that's a thing, but okay. I'm just going to go with it. And I got
kind of similar, I saw some similarities to a Black Russian cocktail, and which has like the Kahlua and chocolate. Like the coffee liqueur and chocolate. So I wondered if that was somehow related to this recipe.
It might be, maybe that's it. Yeah.
Well, the recipe comes from this 1930s cookbook that I have. It's called 125 Recipes of Famous Movie Stars, revealing the culinary secrets of screen idols of the world.
Yay.
And Joan is right here, and that's where I found this recipe.
I love it. Yay.
Yes. All right, so we're going to start out with the recipe, and then we'll get into our deep dive of all things Joan Blondell. I'm going to make half the recipe because Liz and I both tested this, and we found it makes a lot of stuff, like a lot.
I will be eating chocolate for days.
So we're going to start out. It says dissolve 1 tablespoon of cornstarch into 2 cups of strong boiling black coffee. So I'm using my hot plate right here because when I first started Hollywood Kitchen, I was honestly trying to figure out how to mount a laptop over my stove, which didn't go well. So I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to wait for my hot plate to heat up. I've got really hot coffee right here. Which, by the way, in a Hollywood connection that I'm totally not being paid for to do, but that's okay because I still love it. Breakfast Dominique's, I'm using the Jean Harlow coffee because I figure they work together and they were of the same era. So it's kind of a 6 degrees thing.
Nice.
Okay, so I've got my coffee here. And let's see, I'm going to add, again, I'm halving the recipe. So I'm going to add half a tablespoon of cornstarch and let it dissolve amongst the coffee. Okay, I didn't use the double boiler as this recipe indicates. I tried to make my own with this pot and a bowl on top of it. But I found, and I think you found this too, Liz, it wasn't heating up very well. And
No, the chocolate was not melting while the cornstarch was not setting. It says to stir it for 15 minutes. I was stirring it for half an hour, nothing was happening. So I just took it off the double boiler eventually, and then it got it to boil, and then it was starting to set up. It's still not, like, my version is not 100% what I would call set. It's still a little liquid, but it's better than if I had just left it on the double boiler.
And the thing is with me too, when I tested it, I did it over here on the stove and it was splattering everywhere. So I was like throwing chocolate off the wall last night going, this is no way to live. So I just figured doing it straight from the pan would definitely be a better bet for me here. Okay, so, all right, I'm gonna stir it in this hot plate. Okay, it says, a bit of cinnamon and nutmeg. I'm not sure how much a bit is. I'm going to go ahead and count this as like a dash.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a dash of cinnamon. Dash. Oh gosh, that was way more nutmeg than I wanted to do. A questionable dash of cinnamon and nutmeg. And then 1/2 cup of sugar. I'm using a 1/4 cup since I'm reducing the recipe. So we're going to put sugar right now. And as this heats up, I will continue to stir. Now it says add 2 cups of scalded milk. I am just going to add regular milk. I find that when I heat up milk too much, I also have issues with it. And this is already kind of heating up on its own. So I figure it didn't necessarily need to be scalding. So I'm going to stir this up. Okay, and I need to add my chocolate. Now, you could do powdered. Liz, did you do powdered chocolate when you made this?
No, I did this was one of those recipes that, you probably have all the ingredients in the cupboard from last Christmas or whatever. Like, it's very simple ingredients. And I did have like half a baking bar of like semi-sweet chocolate left over from last year. So that's what I used. And it tastes great because you're adding sugar to the recipe too. So yeah, it worked out. But yeah, I just had those bars and it was easy to measure, as opposed to the powdered.
Yeah, a friend got me a kitchen scale, which has kind of been like a game changer. But yeah, I figured it was easier to use baking chocolate that I hadn't used last Christmas too. So what I'm doing right now is I'm stirring together the coffee, the cornstarch, the chocolate, the cinnamon, and the nutmeg, and the sugar. So I'm going to kind of wait until some of this chocolate melts a little bit before I add the milk. So while we're doing this process, Joan, I'd like to go ahead and get started with some questions for you, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Righty. So I always ask this when I have the relatives of stars on, is how did you first realize your grandmother, Joan Blondell, was a movie star? Like, when did this occur to you?
Well, it would have been about 1968 when she was filming. They were filming Here Comes the Brides. They were kind enough to set her up with a little trailer right off the set of the town. And I was in the trailer and she says, this is your space. This is where you'll be when I'll just be right across the street shooting. And she goes, you need to not call me Grandma. And I said, oh, well, we have to have names, like Uncle Norman had names for his kids. Sandy was Poonar, and the son was Puffy. Scott was Puffy, and the littlest one was Gunny. And so we thought, well, we have to have a a nickname for you. We need nicknames. And right then they pushed the ship by on wheels just past, and the captain, Clancy, waved over to us and yelled, "Ahoy, matey." And we both looked at each other and we said, "Matey, that's it. There's your nickname." And so it stuck. That was her. I never called her grandma. It was Matey, and Matey is to her name to this day. Even my daughter's middle name was Matey after her. So that's when I knew she was somebody, when I got to watch the ship sail by on wheels and I got to watch them film it. And David Ofui, the head actor on it, and I had his name this morning, but I forgot it, but it'll come to me. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to get to watch it and watch him film. And Clancy, she nicknamed him Fish Face. And I thought that was the cutest thing. Huh?
What film was this?
This was Here Comes the Brides. It was a series in the late 60s and early 70s. And it was a cute series about a bunch of mountain tree guys that, would fall trees on the mountains where they sent away for women to marry. And they brought them in by ship. And they were matchmaking the different ladies. And it was just the cutest show, campy and fun. And yeah, definitely. Bobby Sherman was in it. I had a crush on him first. He was the hunk of those days. And so, yeah, it was fun.
So I just added the milk, by the way, and I did want to point out right now, this mixture is very liquidy. So when this recipe, when I first came across it, I kind of assumed, because it says, place into tall glasses with cracked ice and serve chilled. For some reason, I thought this was a beverage, but last night when I tested it, and it said to boil for 1/4 of an hour. I didn't quite get that, but the more I cooked it, the thicker and the thicker and the thicker it got. And so basically what I had was a thick chocolate coffee pudding, which I will never complain about pudding. Pudding is a great thing. But I'm thinking, Liz, that this could be a versatile recipe, right? This could be a pudding, but let's face, this could be a cocktail too.
Yeah, so I decided to make kind of a boozy version of it. When I added the milk, I also put in a shot of this coffee liqueur. It's Patron XO tequila. And then also a shot of Godiva, just chocolate liqueur. And, I think I ended up because of the double boiler situation. Like I ended up cooking it for so long that by the time I was done, I was like, well, surely all the alcohol has burned off by now. So then I added a shot of brandy, like just when I was like, okay, I think this is done. It's ready to come off the stove. I put the brandy in. And honestly, I really like the flavor of it all. It does not taste super boozy. You don't really taste the alcohol so much. But it's just like a really nice kind of adult dessert. That coffee flavor, it really shines through. So
it does.
Yeah, I could see it with dark rum too. There's a lot of different variations on this you could do.
Yeah, it seems very versatile because like I said, right now it's kind of like got a real liquidy kind of consistency, but if I keep stirring this and letting it sit, it'll get thicker and thicker. So yeah, this could be a pudding, this could be a dessert drink, this could be a lot of things. So I would even suggest you could even do like a little surround it with a fruit plate and maybe angel food cake and dip it in there as a dipping.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,
so there's a lot you can do with Joan's here. And my whole kitchen right now smells like warm chocolate and coffee, which is basically heaven.
Yes.
Nice. A fondue. It would be kind of like a fondue.
Oh, it would be really nice as a fondue.
So, okay. So Joan, what was the first Joan Blondell feature film that you ever watched?
Uh, I want to say, I don't know whether it's called a feature film or not, but one of my favorites was Topper Returns. I thought she was so cute in that. She was hysterically funny. And I just loved that one. But yeah, I would say that was one of my favorites. And I also loved The Tree Grows in Brooklyn. So that was another good one that I enjoyed a lot and always watched over the holidays. So.
First time I remember seeing her was probably in college when I saw Three on the Match and The Public Enemy.
Yes.
She's one of those stars that even if she's not the main lead in the film and she's part of an ensemble, the minute you see her name, at least with me, I smile and go, oh, okay, this is going to be good. Joan Blondell's in it. Because she just like makes every movie she's in better because she is in that movie.
Yes.
And I'm sure Warner Brothers worked her to the ground, but they kind of had a great thing in her. So I don't blame them for wanting to put her in every single movie that they could. Liz, when was the first time you ever saw a Joan Blondell film?
Probably Grease. I'm gonna say Grease. But then in college we watched Gold Diggers of 1933, and I loved that. And then last year I watched Nightmare Alley for the first time because the new one was coming out and I wanted to see the earlier one. And I just like, she was the best thing in that. And I just adored watching her. But yeah, it started with Grease.
I loved her in Nightmare Alley. The first time I ever saw Nightmare Alley, because for a long time it wasn't seeable. And I saw a nitrate print at the UCLA Film Archive in 2005. And I was so stunned by that movie. I was just blown away. And I kept thinking, this is such a shame this is not more seeable by most people. And then I think Eddie Muller and the Film Noir Foundation and Turner Classic Movies, so many people have worked really hard to kind of get this movie out of the vault and back into the public conscious. Fox finally released it on DVD, Criterion did, and of course
that's when I saw it. Yeah, it was the Criterion release.
And the Guillermo del Toro remake certainly got a lot of publicity because it was on TCM introducing it. So I'm really hoping that a lot of people will discover that. I think that's a great dramatic performance from Joan. And one of my favorite films of hers is definitely The Gold Diggers of 1933 as well, because I love seeing movies on a big screen. I'm always going to be a proponent of that. And I've seen it on TCM and on DVD, but when I saw that on a giant screen, especially the Remember My Forgotten Man. That is
yes.
So good.
That's true.
Up your spine.
It made me cry. I actually cried. So yeah, definitely. It is one of the great ones.
And you know what occurred to me is that it's about to be 2023. That movie is going to turn 90.
Wow, really?
And it feels so fresh to me. And it feels so.
It really does. Yeah.
I think about the numbers and I think that can't possibly be 90 years ago. It just doesn't.
The violins, I'm still like, how did they do that? With the lights, and I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and she was just, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love her whole film career, which we'll talk about a lot of it, but I just am so enchanted with the pre-code era. It just seemed to me that Hollywood was so interesting at that time because of what the kind of mature topics they could talk about, the kind of things they could do. And nobody, I think, in this business had a snappier comeback line in movies than Joan. She just probably one of my favorites is as long as there are sidewalks, you'll always have a job. So she's just so good, and again, she just kind of added such sass to these movies. And I know it's one of the white whales out there, but Convention City is a lost film, and it's supposed to be heralded as one of the wildest pre-codes ever made, and it is lost. So, it kills me. Check your attics, everybody. I'm under the guise of eternal hope that someday lost films will be found, and it has happened. So, because I would love to see what was so incredibly outrageous about that movie that it caused such a
Mhm.
For sure.
And also Joan worked with some of the best people in the business, from Betty Davis, James Cagney, and the Borak. She had a really long run at Warner Brothers. And I would argue that I think they really used Joan as a character actress, but I don't think they invested as much in her roles as they did for Betty Davis and Kay Francis. And I don't think she got as many dramatic parts as she could have, or I wish she would have. But again, I think that she did the absolute best with what she got. She just shined.
Mhm.
So
Definitely. I agree.
she really does. Okay, so moving on to some of the questions. Which one of her movies is both of yours favorite? Joan, what's your favorite Joan Blondell movie?
Well, like I said, I love the Topper Returns because I just thought she was so cute and elegant in that. But like you said, the Gold Diggers was always wonderful. Any of the Busby Berkeley stuff was just amazing on what they did. And her and Cagney, I loved watching anything with her and Cagney because they were like that. I mean, they loved each other. They were best friends and used to talk all the time. And, it showed in anything they did. Their love and respect for one another just poured out.
Is it fun to watch her and Dick Powell? Because they made a ton of films together. And
Yes.
they're both your grandparents. Is that really extra special to watch that?
Yes, for sure. And it's true because then I could see, that's my family. And I was always in awe. And it's funny because I never had a list and I'd be channel surfing along and then I'd see it and I'd yell, Matey, you're in a show. Wait, you got to come see. And she'd say, yeah, okay. And I'd be so in awe that it was great. It was fun to just find her and see them. And then I'd get right into it. So yes, that's very fun.
Liz, what's your favorite?
I gotta go Gold Diggers. I was saying before the show, I just watched it again today, and I just love that scene that she has where like she's not supposed, like she's kind of pulling the wool over this guy's eyes, but then ends up falling for him, but doesn't want to fall for him, and they have this great kissing scene at the end where she kisses, like he says something and she kisses them, and it's back and forth, and that like banter and the choreography of that scene. That movie is so known for the Busby Berkeley choreography, but just in the small, intimate scenes like that, it's just so well done and it feels so fresh. Like I could see this I wish we had a romantic comedy like this now. And she is just so fantastic in it.
One thing, this is maybe slightly off topic, but that I think about sometimes is back in old Hollywood, so many screen couples had incredible chemistry. And today, you don't see romantic comedies in theatrical release. They either go straight to Lifetime, Hallmark, or streaming channels. And when you do, you don't see major stars, that have that kind of red hot chemistry like they did back in the day. I think in our modern era, like maybe Kate and Leo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet and Leo DiCaprio, they're the only screen couple in recent memory I can think of, or Julia Roberts, Richard Gere 20, 30 years ago, that had that kind of chemistry. I wonder what happened to that,
Yeah.
It's frustrating too to see, because like obviously this is the season right now of the like Hallmark Christmas movies and the Lifetime ones, and the actors they get for these. I love, like a lot of times I'll love the female lead and the male lead. I call them potato men. Like they just look like somebody stuffed a bag of potatoes in a Christmas sweater, and it's just like no pizzazz. I don't know. And I don't know what it is about the casting, but you're right. It's just like not there. And if the casting isn't right from the beginning, you've lost me.
Exactly. I totally agree, because they're just, I don't know. I just don't see people that have that kind of chemistry anymore. It seems so rare. And yet it was so prevalent back then. Joan and James Cagney, Joan and Tyrone Power. I mean, so many people had this chemistry that was like palpable. It was so you know, kind of hot to watch. And
Yeah.
boy, that's missing today.
Well, I also think some of it might be to the fact that they did a lot of theater and stage performances, and I think that helped hone their skills somewhat to get that audience, grab that audience. I know she had the ability to make you laugh and cry and be mad within 5 minutes, you know, and it was like, how do you do that? But she definitely was skilled that way as far as acting goes, for
That's
sure.
a great point. That's a great point, John, because it seems like a lot of the classic Hollywood stars came from theater backgrounds.
Yeah,
And
I think that helped.
made them razor sharp as comedians and as performers. And I don't know that many stars today that kind of have that credential.
Yeah, because they had to be right on it. And, you know, just the fact traveling around, I think her vaudeville helped as well with that traveling around and putting on those shows and then pack it up and here's to the next place. So, yeah, I think that helped her life for sure. But I think theater does help a lot if they have a foundation in that, for sure.
Definitely, because I think about the stars from old Hollywood that came from, that were born into vaudeville, like Joan, like I think Fred Astaire was, Ginger Rogers, Judy Garland, Nikki Rooney, like a lot of them probably were born backstage in a genre, so to speak, and that's all that they knew.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, they don't make them like that anymore, as the saying goes. So what was Joan like as a grandmother? Was she playful? Was she fun? What was it like when you visited her house? Like, what kind of stuff did you guys do?
Well, we lived together off and on quite a bit, and she was awesome. She was a great grandmother. I mean, I was spoiled. I'll admit it. I was spoiled rotten. She'd bring me food on a tray, and we'd jump in bed and watch boobies and stuff. And she was the kindest person ever. You know, I remember like Easter, she invited the whole block's kids. And then she had set up this big feast. So we all stuffed ourselves on, you know, chili or whatever she made. I don't remember the meal, but I know it was yummy because anything she made was yummy. And then she bought every one of them these giant bunnies and Easter baskets full of eggs and chocolates and everything. And you know, she just was the most caring and kind and giving person you ever want to meet. It really, I mean, she just was genuine and a heart of gold, and just, you know, wonderful, wonderful to be around and great sense of humor. I mean, she just would make you laugh and she was so fun. I mean, she just was a fun grandma. I had pets and I always had cats. We had our cats. She had her pug dogs. And then I brought turtles, these little baby turtles, and they were named Turt and Squirt. And she used to sit there and feed them these little balls of hamburger, and they would talk to her. They would literally, they go, and they make this little open mouth, you know, and she, oh, babies, hamburger, and it was just the cutest thing. And then the cat, Nippy, he would take the turtles out to play, and then we would have to search the whole house for this little tiny turtle this big.
And I don't step on it.
I'd eventually find them, but usually it was I'd have to pull out every lava rock from this fireplace, and he'd be in the back, and there he is! Yay! We found him. But I can't tell you how many times I had to search for that little turtle. But they were her babies, fresh romaine lettuce. They had to have romaine lettuce and little hamburger balls. And her cat, the cat had this smorgasbord of little dried fishies and little beef baby food. And I mean, it was like this hors d'oeuvre platter every meal, and you're just like, okay. And she cooked for the puggies too. Yeah, so
got your love of animals from Joan, because the other day I got to meet your 2 Siberian Huskies over Zoom.
Yes, I definitely know that we definitely, she inspired my love of animals. My mommy loved animals and my matey loved animals for sure.
And you've written 2 children's books that are about animals. Tell us a little
Yes, they were, my muse are my huskies and my God Shepherd. My roommate has a German Shepherd, which I've taken under my wing, and she's in the second book. It's Blackie and Amber, and it was their story. Amber was her friend, and her friend. It's a cute story, but it's kind of serious because it's about friendship and then loss and then bouncing back after a loss. And kids do suffer losses and they need to be able to bounce back. And so I kind of thought it would be an important thing to address. So that's why we made that one. But yes, the animals are the big inspiration. I have some other cute stories that they inspired as well. So I'm hoping to work on those this year, get those published as well.
Very cool. You mentioned in our pre-interview, you really didn't get to know Dick Powell that well.
I did not. I got to know him through his movies though, for sure. And believe me, I watched them and loved him. And his voice was just, he can melt you with that voice, you know. And I did get to hear some of his radio shows too, because he had a radio show first or before he got into the movie stuff. But yeah, his voice, he's definitely a heartthrob.
What was your favorite Dick Powell movie?
You know what? I don't know the name of it, but it was the cutest one. I was channel surfing and I found it. And that's why I didn't know the name, but it was so cute. He played a reincarnated German Shepherd that somebody had killed the lady's dog and he reincarnated so he could solve the murder.
Oh my God.
Right. And so he comes back as a human. And then his sidekick was this carrot eating lady who was a reincarnated horse. And she ran around with this hat with these 2 feathers on it and chewing on her carrots. And it was just the funniest movie. I just thought, oh, how cute is that? And then to talk about reincarnation in those days, I mean, I'm sure that was like pushing the envelope back in the day, but I just thought it was the cutest story. So yeah, that was probably one of the ones. Matey wasn't in that one, but he was sure cute. He was so cute in it for sure.
Liz, what's your favorite Dick Powell movie?
It's a weird, I think it's one of his later ones. Susan, it's called Susan Slept Here. It's the Debbie Reynolds movie.
That was a good one for sure.
I love him in that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a film noir junkie, so I am always going to go for Murder My Sweet. Because it shows how he and Cagney both, they could be these light comedians and incredible singers and dancers, and then they could just go be these hard-hitting noir guys. So it kind of shows a really great deal of range, you know, for them to switch genres and even, you know, personas like that.
For sure.
Definitely. So let's see here. How are we doing on I've noticed I let this cool off a bit, and I've noticed that there's kind of a skin at the top of it, which I'll kind of clean up.
Is it thickening up for you?
It's thickening up. It's out is really liquidy, and I let it boil, but then I turned the heat way down, and now it's very thick and like a pudding. But I'm going to do what Joan says here and add it. Okay, my cracked ice kind of melted. It's unavoidable, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pour it.
I'm going to transfer mine over the ice.
Mine is the ice.
Mine is still kind of liquidy, but that's fine.
Like I said,
It's very tasty.
I love coffee so much. So
yeah.
Okay, so we can add, like I said, we can add liquors, we can add fruits, you could add milk, water. There's a lot of stuff you can do to alter the tone of this recipe here. Okay, so I'm going to garnish mine once again with a fresh raspberry and a little piece of mint from my garden.
Yay.
Have some sprinkles. I'm gonna.
But my final product.
It looks so good. I wish I could take it and try it.
You could just jump through the computer and be here in my kitchen right now.
Yeah, how
So
fun is
I've got
that?
like some white and gold sprinkles on mine. And this is one of my grandmother's antique dessert cups. So I thought, well, this will look pretty in that.
Yes. So shall we have a toast to Joan Blondell and
Yes.
Yes, I'll have my husky cup.
Cheers to Joan.
right, Joan.
To Joan. Matey.
Mm.
To Matey. I love that.
And if we're toasting too, I was hoping to share a Joan Blondell cocktail recipe I came across, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Please. I found this great book about the cocktails that were served at Lou Walter's Latin Quarter nightclub back in the, I guess, 30s and 40s. I think it closed, well, he left in the 50s. But anyway, so this was Barbara Walter's father who owned the nightclub. And she sadly passed away, I guess, yesterday. I heard the news. So it's kind of a weird coincidence that I found this book recently. But there is a Joan Blondell martini in this, and I'm wondering if she drank it there or it was just inspired by her. I don't know, but I wish I had the story. But it's got, let's see, 1 ounce of gin, 1 ounce of dry vermouth, 1 ounce of Benedictine, 2 or 3 drops of absinthe, and a dash of Angostura bitters. So this is pretty strong for me. And then Joan said that Joan Blondell loved olives in her martinis. So I have a couple olives I'm going to throw in honor of her. So I have the ingredients here. Make it. Using Ryan Reynolds gin here. I love that the celebrities now all have their alcohol lines.
I have to admit, I am such a sucker for packaging. If you put anything in a classic Hollywood or Art Deco.
Oh yeah, this is beautiful.
Yes, it is. Very Art Deco there.
Yeah. Well, Paul Feig has a gin as well. The bottle is quite lovely. It's a little pricey for me, but it's very good. Art and Sauls, I think is the name of it. See, it's vermouth.
It's cinemasips.com, right? If you want to look you up online.
Yes. Cinemasips.com. And I do a lot of classic films. I also do some newer ones too. Especially for the holidays. I try and do one of these cheesy holiday movies, for like the made for TV ones every year. But you know, this was a weird Christmas for me. We're renovating my house. So there's like some darker picks on there this year.
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit of absinthe and a dash of bitters. I'll tell you, one of these will probably do me for the rest of the night. I might be nursing this until midnight.
Can you send me the copy, like a JPEG of the cover of that book and the recipe?
I will.
On the HollywoodKitchenShow.com website.
Yeah, I looked in the publishing details on it. It looks like it was a book published in the 40s and they've re-released it or something. So anyway, 2 olives, and I'll honor Joan.
Thank you.
All right. Kind of the color of a dirty martini. I think that's the Benedictine in it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Oh, it's nice. It's got kind of a sweet, I think the Benedictine gives it kind of a sweet herbally flavor. It is not as strong as I was expecting. It's actually quite nice. And the absinthe gives it a really nice flavor too. So anyway, cheers to Joan. Her cocktail is fantastic.
A toast to Joan. So besides her chili, Joan, what other meals or cocktails or anything did she like to make?
Well, spaghetti was a big one. She could make the best spaghetti sauce. It was awesome. And of course, you had to have the big French roll with the garlic and the butter, and she'd bake it. It's delicious. But she also did these stuffed baked potatoes that were just to die for. I mean, they were so good. She'd hollow them out and she'd mix them up with the sour cream and hamburger, sauteed onions in the hamburger and cheese, and then stick them back in there and bake them again. And those were delicious. But one of my favorite, which she called Bubble and Squeak, was from her Irish mother. And it was the old corned beef and cabbage stuff where you know, the cabbage and the carrots and the onions and the potatoes and the corned beef. And that was a big famous one that we just love to have. And then she got a recipe from a nurse in the hospital. Now I don't know whether she was giving birth or what, but it probably could be with the recipe because it was one of our family favorites. And it's open face. She would lightly toast the bread, put a layer of peanut butter, and then thinly sliced sweet pickle, and then top it off with bacon. So it was peanut butter, bacon, and sweet pickle sandwiches. And they are so good. You would never think that that combination would go good together. But if you like them separate, you should try them sometimes because it really is tasty. And we'd always open face, but you can also put a top on it too. You know,
these all sound like such comfort food recipes.
Yes,
so lovely.
Yeah, definitely.
Another great thing about Joan was how she was able to kind of transition, because again, in studying classic Hollywood, you know, a lot of these stars were not able to have super long careers, many of them 5 years, 10 years, 15 years at the most. And it's not everybody that was able to keep going for 50 years and to transition between vaudeville, Broadway, movies, television. And what do you think was Joan's secret to doing that?
She loved it. She loved it, loved the people. She loved giving of herself. She was such a giver. And, you know, she just loved the work. You know, to her, it wasn't work. It was a pleasure. So, I mean, she would just give it all. And like she said, the Grease, I remember I was living with her when she did Grease. And I was like, it was fun to see that. But she did. She just loved the people. She loved the work. And it wasn't work to her. It was just a pleasure. You know, it was something fun to do. And so I think that's why she just kept going and going and going.
Well, another thing is you don't hear any mean stories about her. Like there's no stories of her showing up late to set, not knowing her lines, acting difficult or anything.
Oh, no.
You don't hear that stuff.
No, she wasn't like that. She was real genuine and caring and kind and generous to a fault. And she treated everybody with respect. She knew the doorman's name. She knew, you know, she was always there with the tips and, you know, giving extra. You know, she was just such a giver and lover and kind and courteous. She didn't have a mean bone in her body. She really didn't. So, definitely an inspiration.
So lovely. You love to find out that the stars that you just adore on screen were as lovely in person. It's the best.
She definitely was that, definitely. And another one of her fun movies was Lady for a Night, which was, I think was with John Wayne, I want to say. And he had the big top hat and stuff and coat and tails and stuff. That was a fun one too. So yeah.
And what are your favorite, besides Grease, some of your favorite later year film? Is the Blue Veil, is that the one she got her Oscar nomination for? I forget off the top of my head.
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you that part, but I know that I don't know. I know that one of her favorite movies that she said, and I don't know whether she was in it, but she used to talk about it, was Bye Bye Birdie. So I don't know. I don't know. I never saw it, so I couldn't tell you. But I think she loved all of them that she worked on. I mean, she just loved the people. She loved the actors, but she definitely enjoyed working with Cagney quite a bit. Art Carney, he was a big friend and family. I remember meeting him. I think he was doing Harry and Tonto with the pussycat, an orange pussycat. He used to come visit all the time, and they were fun to watch together because they were just so funny. It was hysterical. So, yeah.
And I was recently, I did an episode on Betty Davis for Thanksgiving, and we did Betty's Cranberry Moose. And prior to that episode, I was kind of watching every Betty Davis documentary, or rewatching rather, that I could. And some of what Joan Blondell was interviewed in, and I didn't really realize she and Betty had been friends.
Yes, yes.
Because they were both at Warner Brothers in the 1930s. They were both together in Three on a Match. And so that does make sense. And Joan seemed to have nothing but nice things to say about Betty, which not everybody does.
It's true. And like Ruby Keeler, her and Ruby Keeler were very close as well. I remember her talking about Ruby. And, you know, like I said, they used to get together and sing and play piano and just have these great parties. And it was just so much fun. It was fun to see pictures of them. You know, I was lucky to have some of the photo albums that she would have. And they had this big party for my mother when she got married, you know, the bridal shower, and just everybody was there laughing and giggling and having a great time. So, you know, it's just neat.
And do you have any of her memorabilia or clothing or posters or pictures or
pictures? We have pictures. Mommy has a bunch of pictures. I'm fortunate to have some of the pictures. And of course I have her book, both of her books. She's got a couple of books you know, Center Door Fancy. I remember Center Door Fancy, and then the later one.
So Joan wrote Center Door Fancy, a book in, was it 1972 or about then?
I think so, roughly. Yeah.
I haven't read that, but I really need to. Tell me about that book.
It's a really good book, and that tells about her life story and some of the trials and tribulations she went through. And it sure opened my eyes. I had no idea. I got to learn so much more about her reading that book. And I wish I had read it when she was around and I was younger, you know, why I didn't, you know, but then again, I was around the Grease time. I was that rebel teenager that nobody wants to be around. At least I know I didn't want to be around. I was bad. But yeah, it sure shared a lot about some of the stuff she went through. It's a really good book, but it will make you cry. I cried even, you know, but I'm one of those emotional people. Her and I used to cry at old movies all the time. So yeah.
It's kind of interesting because when you're a kid, at least to me, your parents and your grandparents, they almost seem like these like mythical creatures. And then as you get older, you kind of start to know them as adults, and you just think, wow, they're people. They have their own problems and challenges and issues, and they're extremely complicated. And I think as a kid, you don't really think about that. And then
no, I had no idea. And you just don't think about it. And then when you read something, what a gift that was for her to do that. So I can actually know the whole person and, you know, some of her history. It was just amazing. So I'm very blessed that she did that. And she loved to write. She always wrote and would, you know, I remember her writing a lot. She always had writing by the bed and stuff. And my mom is an avid writer as well. So I mean, this runs in the family for sure.
And just to briefly touch on it, Joan, you come from a long showbiz lineage because Joan Blondell's parents were in vaudeville.
Yes.
Of course, Joan Blondell and Dick Powell were movie stars. And then your mother was a hairdresser and your father was a stuntman.
Yes.
So yeah, you come from what, third, fourth generation showbiz?
Yeah. And I didn't come out famous. I just
That's okay. You survive, and that's the main point.
yes. Very grateful. Very grateful for sure. Definitely blessed.
Pardon?
I'm definitely blessed because what's neat is though we were separated by life, I had that luxury of getting to see them and see how they behaved and acted in these movies. You know, I was apart from my daddy, but I could be watching a movie and go, oh, there he is. You know, that's my daddy. And so it's what a blessing that is to have that. I can look at and see my family and how they behave and stuff. I'm just grateful. I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to have that where I could see my grandmother, I could see my matey, I could see my daddy, and I could see my mommy's work, you know, my uncle's work. One of my uncles was, Uncle Junie did lighting. And so that lighting and to make that ambiance of those movies by just, you know, the black and whites, especially. It's just, you have a whole lot of respect for the business, movie magic, you know, I'm just very blessed, very blessed.
So would you say maybe your love of animals is kind of one of the gifts that Joan sort of gave you in life?
Yes. And an appreciation for a good sense of humor. You know, she just would laugh. And I do have a really appreciation for a good sense of humor. I loved Robin Williams, Flip Wilson back in the day, the Smothers Brothers. I just saw a special with them on it the other day. I knew them. I got to meet them with my mommy when we lived in the Marina Del Rey, and to get to see them and they're still around. And it was just great. It was great. So I'm very lucky, but definitely the love of animals. Because boy, we used to walk her dogs, Friday and Freshie. We'd go to parks and we'd bring little sandwiches and walk the doggies and just love that. That was great quality time. Yeah.
So what would you like Joan's ultimate legacy to be? Like, how would she want to be remembered most?
Well, she was dedicated, professional, classy, kind, compassionate, giving, and a wicked sense of humor, and very loyal. She was a loyal friend. I mean, she really did. And so, yeah, all of those things. That was my making.
I think all of that shines through in her movies, really.
I think so. Yeah, thank you. I believe it does too, as well. Because I mean, and they're genuine. That's really how she was. You know, she was campy. She was fun, and she could make you laugh and she could make you cry. I remember seeing her in A Twilight Zone, one of the least favorite movies, because I was living with her at the time. And I want to say, forgot the name of the actor, but he was on a sitcom with like a family of men, maybe, you know, uncles and brothers or something like that. Anyway, I'm not going to say the name, but she was battered. She came home so bruised up, and it was horrible because it was a domestic violence thing. And he pushed her out the window. Well, when she came home, she was, you know, she really got into her characters and her parts. She came home with the worst bloody bruises. I was furious. And I didn't watch it after that. I wouldn't watch it. I protested that show for a while.
I would too.
So disappointed. And then it's like, how did you do that to my matey? It was horrible. He really went to be a slave. So.
You know, a few years ago, Joan was the star of the month for Turner Classic Movies in December. I think it was like 2 years ago. And anytime they show her movies, people just love it. Anytime they show them at Turner Classic Movies Film Festival, the lines are so long to get in, if you can get in. So I wonder how she would feel about the fact that she's still so beloved and popular today, her movies.
Grateful. She would be grateful, because I would definitely say grateful, for sure.
And let me check my phone and see if we've got any questions rolling in here. Sometimes I will look on my phone and I have no questions. And I'm like, oh, I guess no one wanted to ask anything. And then 20 minutes later, my phone will blow up. So I'll do my best here. I'll do my best. Let's see. 104 comments. Okay, well, let's see. Meredith Ponadell's got a question. And Meredith, a shout out to Meredith Ponadell. She's how I found you, Joan. So thank you to Meredith.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Thank you, Meredith. We love you.
Danny Miller is saying, only recently found out Joan's dad was Jewish. Wonder if that had any impact on her cooking.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Could be. Let's see. Meredith says, did you know Patsy Kelly called Dot before she agreed to do that part? What is she talking about there? Do you know?
No,
I'll keep scrolling down. Tabitha is saying, we're so lucky to have you and share your memories with us.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you. Thank you very much.
Danny Miller, Danny's a frequent collaborator and guest on Hollywood Kitchen and a friend. He says, Joan seems as down to earth and fun as her grandmother.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow, a lot of people are commenting what a great person she sounds like. Oh, Barbara Boyd Goss. Hello, Barbara. By the way, Barbara got me these kitchen utensils, which I use all the time, and have kitchen engraved on them. So shout out to Barbara.
Yeah, how wonderful.
Yes, The Twilight Zone, William Dearmast. And it was an intense episode.
It was horrible. I actually saw it, and then I thought, oh no, I don't like this anymore. I'm turning it off now.
It's kind of amazing that we're talking about the Twilight Zone tonight, because this is the big night for the Twilight Zone marathon, New Year's Eve.
Of course, hey, too.
Don't take it personal, because I actually did watch a lot of Twilight Zones, especially with the Star Trek.
Right.
On the plane, Captain Kirk on the plane. I'll never forget that. I didn't want to fly for the longest time. And I'll tell you, that's the first thing that popped into my head. When I was on the airplane, I peeked out and looked at the wing and went. So yes, we love Shatner. So yes, I did watch a lot of Twilight Zones, but I sure didn't like that one at all.
Well, we can all skip that one this year.
Yeah, we don't like that one. Anything but that one.
Okay, well, I'm sure other questions will pop up. It said 104 comments, but then the 104 comments are not loading. So I don't know why that is. I love technology, but sometimes it frustrates me.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm impressed that you're able to do any of this. I can barely handle like an Instagram live. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I love that you've created this format and made it very easy for us to participate.
I do too. Thank you very much, because I am grateful. And you ladies have been a pleasure to work with on this. You made it fun. And I am not a technology person, and so I'm grateful that we got to do this. So thank you.
I just want to say, Joan, you were so patient and determined to do this, because I know there were Wi-Fi problems. You had to go to a friend's house down the street or something. So you really have shown me tremendous dedication to this, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it too. I appreciate your patience, because you kept being on the phone while I'm like, oh, it's not working. Well, shout out to Vivian, because Vivian is the one that let me do it in her room. And so a shout out to her. And bless her little doggy, because her doggy's at the vet right now. So we've got doggy prayers for Lobo. But yeah, I'm very grateful. We finally made it work.
Yes, you made it work. So I'm really grateful for that. And Liz, any last thoughts or any last questions here for Joan or anything you'd want to add?
No, not really. I just I've just gotten into watching more pre-codes this year because of Turner Classic Movies Festival. That's how Carrie and I first connected earlier this year. And that was one of my highlights of 2022. So I'm thrilled to be like ending the year with you in this format because yeah, like that festival introduced me to the pre-codes and I just want to watch them all. And I want to watch all the Joan Blondell pre-codes. She is just such a joy on screen. And I think we all need some of that joy right now. So yeah, I'm just thrilled that, you know, we have this format and can chat about her. And like I said, I love hearing that she was such a lovely person in real life. That makes me love her even more. And I already loved her from her movies.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And that means a lot. And I know she's smiling in heaven now, just hearing all this wonderful stuff. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Matthew Kennedy, who's a biographer based in San Francisco, he did write a biography on Joan called Joan Blondell, A Life Between Takes. And this book is available. I think Larry Edmonds in Hollywood probably has it, and I know you can get it online as well. And I'm just really excited that we got to do this. I'm so grateful to you, Liz and Joan, for both joining me to ring in the new year. And thank you so much. And I just want to thank everybody for watching because doing these episodes has been so much fun for me. I've learned a lot. I've had a lot of great times. And I've learned how to make things and how to not make things. So tremendous education going on here. And by the way, I do have Patreon, shameless plug. So if anybody wants to support that, all the proceeds from that go right back into buying groceries and buying supplies to do these episodes.
Yay.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, for commenting. If we don't get to your comments, I'll go to Facebook later and answer them. So thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. 2023. Here we come.
Yes. And please stay tuned for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.
Yay. Thank you.